Hey everyone, and welcome back to today's Explainer. Get ready because we are diving straight into a massive race against time mission right alongside our favorite young investigators, Jack and Annie. We're stepping onto the deck of the legendary Titanic right after it bumped into that giant iceberg. But here's the twist. Instead of total panic, we're actually looking at a really bizarre puzzle. As investigators today, your job is to figure out exactly how time, distance, and human behavior all collided on this cold April night back in 1912. Let's get right into it. Here's our mission briefing for this chapter, all hands on deck. We'll start by uncovering the terrible truth, then we'll look at the seriously difficult task of waking the passengers. After that, we'll see them sending out distress signals, and we'll wrap up with the weirdest part, why everyone thought there was absolutely no need to worry.
All right, let's jump straight into stage one, the terrible truth and a very real ticking clock.
So our mission kicks off on the bridge of the ship. It's super quiet, very serious, and the ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, is doing some frantic math. He discovers a critical problem. 6 of the ship's safety compartments are totally flooded with water. Now, the Titanic was actually designed to stay afloat if 4 compartments filled up. 4 was totally safe, but 6? Yeah, the math was definitely no longer on their side. The ship literally couldn't handle that much extra weight pulling it down.
This is where it gets incredibly intense. Andrews gives the captain a shocking countdown. They have a maximum of 2 hours left to float. Just 2 hours. I mean, imagine having only 120 minutes to move thousands of people off a giant ship in the middle of a freezing ocean. The clock is officially ticking. But here's the crazy part. Almost no one else on board has any clue.
Knowing they are completely out of time, Captain Smith immediately issues an all-hands-on-deck protocol. He gives 4 exact rapid-fire orders. Number 1, get the lifeboats ready. Number 2, wake up every single passenger. Number 3, make sure everyone puts on a life jacket. And number 4, send out a distress signal for backup. Sounds like a really solid plan, right? Well, as Jack and Annie are about to find out, giving an order and actually getting people to follow it are 2 completely different things.
Which brings us to stage 2, waking the passengers. And trust me, this is a much more difficult task than it sounds.
You'd totally think that if a ship is in trouble, people would jump right out of bed, right? But human behavior is super funny sometimes. The stewards, those are the crew members who take care of the passengers, are sent into the hallways to hand out life belts. That's what they called life jackets back in 1912. They were bulky, made of stiff canvas and cork, and just totally uncomfortable. The poor stewards are knocking on doors, trying to get people to strap these awkward blocks over their pajamas. But instead of rushing around in a panic, the passengers are just totally relaxed. Lots of them refuse to even open their doors. One guy famously joked to a super frustrated steward, "It will take more than an iceberg to get me out of bed." Honestly, people just simply couldn't wrap their heads around the idea that the biggest, supposedly safest ship in the world was actually in any real danger. Even when Jack and Annie notice the floors are actually slanting downward, the crew just forces themselves to smile. When confused passengers ask what's going on, the crew cheerfully tells them, "Oh, it's just a little accident." Now, why lie? Well, the crew knows that if thousands of people panic all at once, safely loading those lifeboats would be literally impossible. So they try to keep everyone calm. But by keeping them calm, they are also making them move very, very slowly.
Let's move on to stage 3, sending distress signals and desperately calling for backup.
While the stewards are dealing with grumpy, sleepy passengers, down in the wireless room, things are incredibly intense. The ship's wireless operators, Jack Phillips and Harold Bride, are rapidly tapping out a desperate message in Morse code. It says, "We are sinking fast, passengers being put into boats." It's basically a cry for help sent out into the dark, empty sky, just hoping somebody out there is listening. And guess what? Someone does listen. The closest ship to answer the call is a British passenger ship called the Carpathia. But we have a massive geographic puzzle here. The Carpathia is a full 60 miles away. And out in the middle of the ocean, 60 miles is a massive, dangerous distance to cover. This one number completely amps up the tension of our mission. Even with the Carpathia firing up all its engines and traveling at absolute top speed, it's going to take them at least 3 hours to arrive. Let's do the math. Remember our countdown? The Titanic only has 2 hours left. The rescue ship is 3 hours away. That means they are going to be exactly 1 hour too late. It is a mathematical tragedy unfolding right in front of us.
And that leads us to our 4th and final stage. No need to worry.
or as I like to call it, the grand illusion. So the crew totally knows the ship is sinking and that the rescue boat will not make it in time. But what about the passengers? While the crew is sweating it out against the clock, the passengers have finally been coaxed out of their nice warm rooms. They're just casually hanging out on the freezing deck in their pajamas and fancy coats. Some have their life belts on, sure, but they look way more annoyed by the freezing cold than afraid of the ocean. They fully assume they'll just go back to bed in a few minutes.
And inside, it's even more surreal. Jack and Annie are completely shocked by what they're seeing. People in the smoky lounges are just sitting around playing card games. The ship's band has literally set up their instruments and they're playing lively, upbeat dance music, and couples are actually dancing. And outside on the deck, kids are literally playing soccer using chunks of ice that fell off the iceberg. I mean, it's like a bizarre winter party instead of a giant emergency.
The confidence these passengers have is just mind-blowing. When young Annie urgently warns the adults in the card room that they really need to hurry to the lifeboats, they just laugh at her. One man literally says, "Little girl, even if this ship does sink, it'll take all night. There's plenty of time for everyone on board to be rescued." They somehow trust the reputation of the ship more than they trust their own eyes seeing the floor slanting downward.
But the ultimate irony happens right up on the top deck. The crew is getting absolutely desperate to attract the attention of any nearby ships, so they start firing explosive distress rockets high into the dark sky. With a hiss and a huge boom, they burst into bright colors. And how do the freezing passengers react? They actually clap and cheer. They're laughing and shouting, "Fireworks!" They genuinely think the crew is putting on a special midnight holiday party just for them. It's wild.
As our explainer comes to a close today, we're left looking at this deeply fascinating puzzle of history. The brilliant engineers did the math and knew they were out of time. The brave wireless operators tapped frantically into the night. But the passengers, they just danced, played ice soccer, and cheered for distress rockets. So I leave you with this final question to ponder. With the crew racing against a 2-hour clock and the passengers treating it all like a late-night party, how long can this illusion possibly last before the slanting decks become just too steep to ignore? Think about that puzzle as we wrap up today's case.